Michael, tell me why you decided to implement Building Learning Power here.
I think the main reason was to try to give pupils the kind of experience that they would have to develop when they leave school, so that we were preparing students not just for exams, important though they are, but also preparing students for the future, for their life beyond, in the world of work, in higher education.
And how do you think Building Learning Power has helped you to prepare them for those things?
I think what it's enabled them to do is to focus on the skills that they need to develop, the learning talents that they need to develop, whether it's to be able to communicate, whether it's being able to cooperate, collaborate with others, persevere with tasks, to think, to evaluate. All of those skills are ones which are important that they build if they're going to become independent learners in the long term.
And what have been the sort of benefits for your students or changes you've seen in them during this process?
I think they've become far more self-aware. They've become far more interested in what they do, involved in what they do. I think as well they've become far better at what they do. They've become far better learners. And in fact, what we're seeing is that their results in examination terms have been improving as well, which, you know, in part we can put down to that.
And what do you think have been the benefits for yourself and for staff?
I think as far as staff are concerned, it's more interesting. It's actually a challenge as well. But it means that we think far more about the learning process and plan for that to take place, not just in an individual lesson, but over a period of time. It's brought far more professional discussion into the school, in a school which actually was strong for that anyway. But that professional discussion has been something which means that now there's far more talk about learning in the school and how we get children to learn, rather than perhaps more peripheral things.
I suppose one often thinks that schools are perhaps slightly overburdened with new initiatives and things they have to do already. Have there been practical challenges in introducing Building Learning Power, or has it perhaps solved some problems for you?
I think in terms of the practicalities, we decided that we would do this as a whole school, and we've done just that. We set out to ensure that the critical mass of the staff in the school were trained and introduced to it in the first instance, because unless everyone's doing it at once, it doesn't have that generality of staff being involved, and also the students' experience of what goes on is patchy otherwise. It does have its challenges, because we've then got to sustain it. So we are putting time and effort at the moment into, for instance, the induction of new staff, and also the constant updating and training of ourselves. The other side is the work that we have done on looking at how pupils make progress in the skills and talents that they learn. Those talents at year 7 would be perhaps not as developed as those at year 13. So there is the practical work that we've been doing on enabling teachers to look at degrees of those particular skills and how they help children to move from one level to another.
How has BLP sort of fitted in with all the other initiatives that you have to implement within school?
It's the central one, and therefore everything else has got to either fit round it or not take a part there. So if the learning process is the centre of what we do at school, we've got to get that right and allow everything else to support that. If things don't support that, then they're peripheral, they actually don't get done in the same priority as we would put on BLP. And I think that's what that means, is that BLP helps us to make sense of everything we might have to do, because that becomes the central part of the skeleton of the school, and everything else has got to fit onto that.
What would your message be to any other school who is perhaps thinking of implementing BLP?
I'd say firstly that it's something that you can't do by halves. You've got to be committed in whole to that process of learning and using this as a method to support and enable that. People could be sceptical for a number of reasons. It could be that it's the amount of work that needs to take place. It is a lot of work to do so, but that's work that you would have to do anyway. All you're doing is using this as the initiative to do that. There is perhaps a reticence that people might have that it might not be supportive of exam results. It might not produce the results. Our experience is that the results that pupils get are better than they would be otherwise because they're involved in the learning process. They become far more engaged in that, and actually teachers aren't doing all the work to enable them to succeed.